Hello guys, welcome to Insta Electronics. So in today's episode, let's take a look at how a speedometer sensor in your bike works, or basically how a speedometer works. So in my case, I'll be using my Apache RTR 160 as an example, and as you guys can see, I'm about to change my tire to a brand new one. So I have decided to give a new fresh coat of paint for my alloy, and that gives me an opportunity to see how the speedometer sensor was attached to the alloy wheel and how everything was tied together. So let's take a look at the speedometer sensor, and the part you are looking right now is the speedometer sensor. So if I spin it like that, you can see that if I spin it like this, you can see the speedometer value is changing. Okay, if I spin it like that. So there are two ways that your speedometer can do that. So it has to detect that this thing is spinning somehow, so that it can interpret the coming signals as a speed. So it can do that by two ways. Or we can say that there are two types of speedometer sensors. The coil type speedometer sensor, the most simple kind of sensor, and the Hall effect sensor type. So in a coil type sensor, this part will be a piece of coil, a coil wrapped around a piece of ferrite or something, but I'm not sure how it actually is made, but let's say it is actually a coil. And since this thing is a magnet, when this thing rotates in proximity to a coil, as you all know, when a magnetic field is changing around a coil, it induces a voltage in the coil. So when this is spinning, the magnet is spinning near to coil, and the coil will induce a voltage, which will then interpreted by the speedometer itself, and it will convert that signals to a readable value that will be displayed on the screen. There is a lot of mathematics involved in such a process, which I'm not going to explain because the speed of this thing is actually related to the tire size. That is why it is important to when you are upgrading the tire size, it is important to look for the maximum allowed limit for the tire, because based on the tire diameter, the rotation will change, and that actually changes the speedometer. So basically, if you're changing the tire to the wrong size, the speedometer values will be wrong. It gives a speedometer error. So before moving to the further complex things, let me just show you some props that I have with me. That this two things. This is a power bank, a simple power bank, and a magnetic pole detector, which I made myself. So if I connect it like that, you can see a red LED change. You can see a red LED over there, and if I bring a magnet, there's a magnet in here, and if I bring a magnet close to it, you can see that it actually is changing the LED color based on the magnet. See, if I bring them, I'm not doing anything here, it's just the magnetic proximity. So I will explain how this thing works in a different video, but basically the way this thing works is similar to how this thing works. Okay, so now let's connect. Let's see what happens if I bring the magnet near to this one. If I bring this magnet close to here, you can see pretty much nothing happens, and only the red LED is on. The green LED is not getting turned on. I can make sure that this is working by bringing this thing. See, it is working, but I can say that this sensor in here is not sensitive enough to detect the small tiny magnetic field created by this thing. I can prove that this is a magnet because I have a pin over here. Let me just stick it here, and if I can attach the pin, you can see this is a magnet. It's a very it has a very tiny strength. This field F is very low, that is why it is not getting detected by the sensor also. See, so this much weak magnetic field can be detected by the sensor in here. So this sensor must be very sensitive. Okay, so now let's move to the second type. This is the Hall effect sensor type. So I already explained the first type. In this one, the sensor that is used in here will be much similar to the sensor that is used in here. You can clearly see the sensor over here, this black thing. I will open this one in a different video and show you how this thing works. In that I can explain much better. So in a Hall effect sensor, this part remains the same. In a coil type also, in a Hall effect sensor also, the magnetic part remains the same because it both requires a magnet for its operation. So when this is rotated near a uh, Hall effect sensor, it actually produces an output. See, for a Hall effect sensor, it can either be of a 4-pin type or a 3-pin type. The one used inside here is a 4-pin type. That is why it can switch the LEDs to 2 different colors. But the sensor used in here must be of a 3-pin type, because if you look the cable, I can show you that the cable that is going in here, this right here, this is the cable that goes to the speedometer sensor, and you can see the 3 wires clearly, the red, the blue and the black, and there is no 4th wire, so it's a 3-pin type. The red and black will be power and ground, the blue will be the output. So this must be a 3-pin type Hall effect sensor. I believe it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Any TVS service engineers or experts, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And so what happens is that when this is spinning, the Hall effect sensor actually requires power for its operation. So when your speedometer is not working, what must be happening is that the sensor part in here is damaged. So we can actually repair it somehow, like somewhat it is possible. It will not be possible by normal people, but for technicians, for people who have expertise in electronics, can actually repair it. But the thing is, then you have to break the seal, and it will not be weatherproof like before. And it is not necessary that the sensor that is used in here is available in the local market, because this must be a very sensitive component. As you have seen, it is not registering in a normal Hall effect sensor that I have. So this must be a very sensitive one, and the prices can be high. And once you connect it in here, you have to seal it back. It's a lot of work compared to the 700 rupees price for this thing. So what happens is that in a Hall effect sensor, this part will be consisting of multiple magnetic poles, north south, north south, north south, north south, like that. So what happens is that when this is moving around the Hall effect sensor, the Hall effect sensor is actually seeing those phases continuously, like north south, like it spins around, correct? So just like in here, when this is moving around like that, let me turn off the flash. This is how it exactly works. So every time when the wheel spins, it is actually seeing north south, north south, north south, like that. So each blinking of the LED indicates one, let's say one or couple of motions. I'm not sure how many times it is actually correlates to, because obviously the tire diameter has a very big role in determining the speed. So if you calculate that wrong, the whole speed will be wrong. So when the outer area of the tire completes one full rotation, only then this inner part will complete one complete rotation. So it's much easier to rotate it like this. See, I can much easily rotate this with my finger. But when it is attached to the alloy wheel, the whole tire has to spin one time to make it one complete rotation like that. So each time when it does like that, this is what is happening. It is actually change the magnetic field like that, and the output pin will give off a signal depending on which magnetic pole is coming close to it, similar to what you're seeing right now. So that count will be taken by the speedometer sensor to calculate, let's say, what is the speed of the bike. Okay, in the previous analog ones, it is detecting how many times this is spinning, but in the new generation one, it depends on how fast this is spinning, because the higher the rotation speed, the higher the frequency that is coming from here. The higher the frequency, it indicates a higher speed. The lower the frequency, it indicates a lower speed. That is the way that this thing works. So yeah, basically that's it. That is how a speed sensor works. If I get hold of a non-working speedometer sensor like this one, I will make a video showing what's inside the sensor part over here. So let's take a look at deeper and let's discuss the part number if possible. Okay, I'm not guaranteeing this because I need to talk to a guy from the workshop to really get a hold of this thing. But anyway, I will give a try, and basically speaking, that's it. I think I have covered everything that is required for this video, and I will make a different video for this unit right here. This is basically a Hall effect sensor, and what's inside here is much similar to what's inside here. So you can when I take apart this one, you can actually see in a greater detail how this thing works. So yeah, That's it for today's video. See you in another video. Thanks for watching.